Explaining functional neurological disorder or FND is one of the hardest things, even having it, because how do you describe that your brain is glitching? Like a broken Wi-Fi signal. It's that moment where someone asks, so what actually is functional neurological disorder? And it's difficult because you can just see their brain buffering while you're trying to answer. And that's the challenge. The challenge is explaining it because it's not something that fits into any neat box on a form or a scan, or it's not a muscle disorder, it's not something to do with your bones, it's not a mental illness, it's a neurological condition. But it's one of the neurological conditions that happens without any structural damage in the actual brain. So when people hear that, they go, wait, so your brain looks normal on scans, but it doesn't work normally? And the only response that I can give is like, yeah, pretty much. It's it's like if your phone looks perfectly fine on the outside and there's no issues with the phone, it looks like a brand new phone. The screen might be, you know, fingerprints or whatever, but it's not cracked, it's not damaged. The phone looks fine, but the software inside the phone is the problem. So the phone keeps freezing, it keeps sending notifications to the wrong app, or when you click a button, it doesn't respond. That's my brain and the brain of someone with FND. The hardware is fine, but the system and the software keeps malfunctioning and crashing. So my go-to explanation or analogy for having FND is what I try and explain it using. And I usually say that my brain knows what it wants to do. My brain knows that it wants to walk. My brain knows it wants to talk or move or all of these things. But somewhere between that want and thought and the action actually taking place is where the message just gets lost completely. It gets scrambled. And it's like trying to send an email. So your computer's not connected to Wi-Fi, but you try and send an email. You type out the email, you click send, the signal is sent. In terms of on your end, you've clicked it, it might show that it's sent, but it will not send and the message will never reach its destination because you're not actually connected to the internet. That's what happens when I try and move my legs, or when my body suddenly shuts down during a seizure. The intent is there. The message that I want to send in my thought is there, but the signal isn't there. The signal is being sent wrong or not arriving. And this is usually the part where people they tilt their head at you and they're like, so is it stress? Is it a psychological condition? It's all psychological and in your head, right? And that is that's where I take a deep breath because no, it's not about being stressed or anxious. And stress, yes, can make it worse, but that's the same with any neurological condition. It's the truth that my brain is miscommunicating. It's real physical misfiring of signals, not emotions pretending to be symptoms. It's the brain's signals not working correctly. Sometimes when I'm explaining it to people, I'll get a sympathetic nod. And it's the kind of nod that someone gives you that says, I don't really understand, but I want to seem supportive. And as much as they don't understand, I appreciate that effort. Because most of the time, people want to get it, they want to understand it. They just don't have the language and understanding for something as complex as FND. So, a personal example of this is the best way for me to explain it. When I lost my ability to walk, I remember trying to explain it to a friend, and they asked me, so if there's nothing wrong with your legs, why can't you just get up and walk, get up and move? And what I said to them was because my legs aren't the problem. the signal from my brain to my legs is. And it's like in an office that the legs are a worker, the brain is the boss, but the legs aren't getting the memo. It's getting lost in between. And I even told them, like, imagine unplugging your keyboard from your computer. Your computer might still know what letters you want to type, depending on what you're using, like what you're on. But the keyboard can't actually type to the computer. That's what FND feels like in your head and in everything. It feels like my connection between my brain and the body parts, that cable has just been pulled out of the port. And they went quiet for a second when I explained this and said, okay, I think I get it now. And that moment, that little click of understanding, it means everything to someone with FND. They may not fully understand it, and they probably won't, because someone without the condition doesn't tend to understand it, I'll be honest. But if you're watching this and you do have FND, here's a few ways that I found that help when explaining it to people who don't understand. Use analogies. People relate better when they can visualize what you're saying. So, say things like, it's like a software glitch in my brain. It's like a switch flickering on and off. The wiring is there, but the current between that switch and the device is unstable. Keep them short. You don't have to go into a whole neuroscientific, I'm a neurologist kind of level. You don't have to give them a lecture. A simple sentence like, my brain and body aren't communicating properly right now, is enough. They don't have to understand. Just stay patient, and you might have to explain it 10 or more different ways before that person that you're explaining it to actually gets what you're trying to say. But that is okay. Doesn't mean your experience is less valid or less real, and it doesn't mean that they don't care. It's just they haven't been given what they need to understand. So use your own story. Real examples hit harder than medical terms could. So don't use medical terms. When people hear what it feels like, the confusion, the loss of control, the whole raw emotional side of the condition, that's when they start to understand. And that's the situation of FND and the whole miscommunication of what it is. It's the power of understanding. I've learned that explaining FND isn't really about making people understand every detail or the condition and chronic illness as a whole. It's about helping them see what's happening is real, even if they can't fully wrap their head around the science or the explanation behind it. If they can understand you, they can see that your experience is genuine, and that validation means that the world, when you're living with something invisible and as difficult as FND, it can be a major difference for you. So if you're one of the people trying to support someone with FND, thank you. Even asking questions shows that you care for them enough to try and understand. Now, don't bombard them with questions, but try and understand. It's not all in their head, because it just isn't. But communication with that person builds connection. And the more we talk about FND and functional neurological disorder openly, honestly, and without the shame that often is behind it, the less that we all feel the less alone that we all feel. Because it is a very lonely condition. But anyway, that's how I explain it. It's a brain glitch, a software problem, a miscommunication between the brain and the body. And it's not simple, but then again, living with the condition, living with the symptoms, the paralysis, the seizures, that you don't know when they're going to happen a lot of the time, them themselves aren't simple, aren't easy to live with. And if you're watching this and you do have FND, you're doing your best, and that is enough. keep explaining, keep speaking up, and never doubt your own reality, you are not broken. Your brain just. Your brain's buffering a little bit. It's just buffering. Give it some time. Anyway, if you're new here, just remember you're not alone.